Hi everyone, hope all of you are in the best of spirits. I will be teaching you topic 5, under the title of Good Laboratory Practice, or in short, the GLP. Now let's start. I will be dividing the GLP lecture into 3 to 4 short videos. In this first video, we will have an overview of GLP. This lecture will cover the following topic of the history of GLP. GLP definition. Where can GLP be applied? The objectives. And finally, the 10 principles of the GLP. Before we go deeper, let's have a look at the brief history of GLP. Well, it all started in the 70s, when controversial issues arises due to several fraudulent cases. Back in those days, the drug companies are required to perform animal testing before they can proceed with human clinical trials. A giant company by the name of Bioindustrial Testing was caught on providing fraud data. The investigation of animal houses even discovered that the dead test animals were replaced with new ones that were not properly treated. There were even falsification of data to fit the desired results. The FDA was outraged and has brought the issue to the U.S. Congress. Therefore, in 1976, they had come up with the proposed regulation of GLP. This is to provide the basis of assurance and data integrity for all the results submitted to FDA. Moving forward to the 1978-1979, the GLP was promoted to law. Meanwhile, in 1981, the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development (OECD) had formulated the GLP principles for the international level. The objective is to avoid unnecessary repetitive testings among the OECD members which complied to the principles of GLP. Now, what is actually GLP? By definition, the GLP is a quality system, concerned with the organizational process and the conditions under non-clinical health and environmental safety studies are planned, performed, monitored, recorded, archived and reported. The GLP is actually a set of regulation by the US FDA. Thus, any foreign companies that wanted to do business with the US companies have to comply with the GLP regulations. However, in 1981, the OECD had come up with an international standard of GLP principles. The drug discoveries actually involve several stages of development. However, not all of these stages are governed by the GLP. The first stage is the phase of discovery. This is where all the basic researches, disease discoveries, drug discoveries or any preliminary experiments are taken place. This stage of drug discovery is not regulated. Next, stage 2 involves all the non-clinical testings. This includes the in vitro and in vivo studies, safety studies or animal studies. This stage is regulated by the GLP. Meanwhile, at stage 3, human clinical trials are being carried out. This stage of drug discovery is not governed by the GLP. But instead, it is under the guideline of Good Clinical Practice or GCP. Stage 4 is after the product has been approved and to be manufactured. This particular phase is governed by the Good Manufacturing Practice or the GMP. We will be covering this phase in the upcoming lectures. Now, where can actually the GLP be applied? Well, the GLP is intended for studies that are non-clinical, or analytical studies, which does not involve human clinical trials. The GLP is also designed for studies that are performed to obtain data on the properties or safety of the compound of interest with the respect to human health or the environment. GLP also governs the non-clinical testings or studies for the regulatory purposes, which are intended to be submitted for registration or licensing. GLP covers the test facilities in laboratories, animal houses, greenhouses and in-field. However, the GLP is not intended for basic researches, new analytical method developments, or clinical studies, as has been mentioned before. The GLP is developed with several objectives that are To promote the development of quality test data, we want valid data with integrity that reflects on the true experimental work that has been carried out. To provide outline or as a tool to ensure sound approach to the management of lab studies, their conducts, reports and archiving. The GLP also ensures the traceability of data. We want all the analytical data obtained can be tracked back to its original source of sample or specimen. And lastly, the GLP is to promote international acceptance of data among the participating countries. The GLP is composed of 10 main principles. The first principle, test facility organization and personnel, provides an outline regarding the management of the test facilities and the personnel involved. It discusses on their job descriptions and the importance of training. The second principle, the quality assurance program, describes the system that manages and ensures the compliance towards the GLP. It describes the responsibilities of the quality assurance personnel and all the documentations that are under his or her governance. Meanwhile, the third principle, the facilities, focuses on the issues and requirements of the premises or buildings where the whole organization of the test study is being carried out. The fourth principle is pretty straightforward. This section provides guidelines on the managements of the apparatus, materials and reagents involved in the study. The fifth principle, test systems. Well, test system is actually refers to the system that is being studied. Let's say you are conducting a toxicology test on rats. Then, the rats are your test system. The sixth principle, the management of the test and reference items. Test items refers to the active compound or the drug that of your interest under study. Meanwhile, the reference item is the control or the placebo of your study. The seventh element, the standard operating procedure, is one of the essential components of the GLP. The SOP describes on the documentations of protocols and its management. The eighth principle, performance of study, provides the outline on the planning and conduct of the study. Next, the ninth principle, reporting of study results, gives the guideline on how reports should be prepared and their requirements. And lastly, the 10th principle, the storage and retention of records and materials, discusses on the management of record keeping and methods of archiving. Thank you for your attention. Well, that's the end of part 1. We will go deeper in some of the GLP principles in part 2. Please do not hesitate to ask if you have any question. Bye everyone.